Welcome to Tales by Felix, where every story unlocks a new world. Remember to subscribe, like and share. Let's begin. The hospital room was a sterile cocoon, its silence shattered by a newborn's wail. In the dim glow of a flickering fluorescent light, a young woman, barely 20, lay trembling on the delivery table. Her name was Clara, though no one in the room knew it. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow with a mix of exhaustion and dread. The baby's cries pierced the air, each one a tiny plea for connection, but Clara's gaze was fixed on the ceiling, unyielding. "Ma'am, do you want to hold her?" the nurse asked gently, cradling the swaddled infant. Her voice was soft, practiced, but carried a trace of concern. Clara shook her head, a sharp, almost violent motion. "No," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I can't. I just can't." The nurse exchanged a glance with the doctor, who stood by the door, scribbling on a chart. "Are you sure?" the nurse pressed, stepping closer. "She's healthy. Beautiful. Look at those eyes." Clara's lips trembled, but she turned her face away, her hands clutching the thin hospital sheet. "Please," she said, barely audible. "Take her. I'm not her mother. Not anymore." The room fell silent again, save for the baby's softening whimpers. The nurse hesitated, then nodded, her expression unreadable. She carried the infant out, her steps echoing in the empty corridor. Clara waited until the door clicked shut before letting out a sob, raw and guttural, as if something inside her had torn free. She was gone by morning, leaving behind a single piece of paper with a name scrawled in shaky handwriting, Clara. That name was all the baby had, a fragile tether to a mother who'd vanished into the night. The hospital staff, accustomed to such cases, processed the paperwork with quiet efficiency. Clara, wrapped in a standard-issue blanket, was handed to social services, her tiny fingers curling instinctively around nothing. This was her first breath in a world that had already let her go, but it was also the spark of a story that would one day shake the foundations of industries and hearts alike. The scene shifts to a grainy VHS tape, discovered years later by Clara herself, showing the hospital security footage from that night. A shadowy figure, Clara, slips out of the maternity ward, her hood pulled low, her steps hurried. 7 years later, in a small weathered house on the outskirts of a sleepy Midwestern town, Clara bounced on a creaky couch, her laughter filling the room. The walls were lined with faded floral wallpaper, and the air smelled faintly of cinnamon from the apple pie cooling on the kitchen counter. Margaret and Henry Voss, her adoptive parents, sat across from her, their faces glowing with pride as Clara proudly showed off a drawing of a rocket ship. "Look, Mama, it's gonna go to Mars," Clara declared, her dark curls bouncing as she waved the paper. Her eyes, a striking hazel, sparkled with a curiosity too big for her small frame. Margaret, a soft-spoken woman with graying hair, leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. "Mars, huh? That's a long way, sweetheart. You'll need a lot of fuel for that trip." "Cookies," Clara giggled, pointing to the plate on the coffee table. "Cookies are rocket fuel." Henry, a burly man with calloused hands from years as a mechanic, chuckled deeply. "Well, if cookies get you to Mars, we better bake a few more batches." He ruffled her hair, his touch gentle despite his rough exterior. The Vosses weren't wealthy. Their home was modest, their clothes second-hand, but their love for Clara was boundless. They'd adopted her at 6 months old, after years of longing for a child they couldn't conceive. Margaret, a former schoolteacher, spent evenings reading to Clara from library books, while Henry taught her how to tinker with broken radios and old clocks. They noticed early on that Clara wasn't like other kids. At 4, she'd fixed a neighbor's toaster by rewiring it with a paperclip. At 6, she was solving math puzzles meant for middle schoolers. One evening, as Margaret tucked Clara into bed, the girl's expression grew serious. "Mama, where did I come from?" she asked, clutching a stuffed bear. Margaret's heart skipped, but she smiled warmly. "You came from love, sweet girl. From the moment we saw you, we knew you were ours. But before that," Clara pressed, her voice small but insistent. Margaret hesitated, then kissed her forehead. "Before that, you were a gift, waiting for us to find you." "And we did." Clara nodded, satisfied for now, but the question lingered in her eyes, a seed of curiosity that would grow with her. The Vosses gave her a foundation of unconditional love, but they couldn't shield her from the mystery of her origins. That mystery, coupled with their unwavering support, would fuel her relentless drive to carve her own path. By age 12, Clara was a whirlwind of intellect and ambition. Her bedroom was a chaotic laboratory of second-hand computers, stacks of library books on economics and coding, and notebooks filled with equations and diagrams. The Vasses, though baffled by her interests, scoured thrift stores for outdated tech manuals and a clunky PC that hummed loudly but worked just enough. One Saturday morning, Henry walked into her room, carrying a toolbox. "Found this at a garage sale," he said, setting down a battered Commodore 64. "Figured you'd make something of it." Clara's eyes lit up. "Dad, this is ancient. It's perfect." She dove into the machine, her fingers flying over the keys as she muttered about binary code and memory allocation. At school, Clara was an enigma. Her classmates called her calculator behind her back, half in awe, half in mockery. During a math class, her teacher, Mr. Grayson, a wiry man with a penchant for challenging his students, scribbled a complex problem on the board. "Who can solve this?" he asked, scanning the room. Hands stayed down, but Clara's shot up. "It's 42, she said before he could call on her. Mr. Grayson raised an eyebrow. "Care to explain?" Clara walked to the board, her sneakers squeaking, and broke down the problem in under a minute, her logic flawless. The class stared, silent. Mr. Grayson grinned. "Miss Voss, you're going to give me a run for my job one day." That evening, at the dinner table, Clara recounted the moment with a rare burst of excitement. "Mr. Grayson said I could be a mathematician. Or maybe a coder. Or both." Margaret set down her fork, her eyes shining. "You can be anything, Clara. Anything at all." Henry leaned back, wiping his mouth. "Just don't forget us when you're running the world, kiddo." Clara's genius wasn't just academic. She saw patterns where others saw chaos, stock market trends, consumer behavior, even the rhythm of her small town's economy. She started sneaking into the library's computer lab after hours, teaching herself Python and studying market data. Her obsession wasn't about money, it was about proving she could master the world's complexities, a quiet rebellion against the void of her origins. At 16, Clara's curiosity about her birth mother became an ache she couldn't ignore. She sat cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by printouts from public records and a library book on genealogy. The hospital's name, St. Mary's in Chicago, was her only solid clue, gleaned from a faded adoption document Margaret had reluctantly shared. "Clara, you sure about this?" Margaret asked one evening, standing in the doorway. Her voice was soft but heavy with worry. "I need to know, Mama," Clara replied, not looking up from her laptop. "Not to change anything. Just to understand." Margaret sighed, sitting beside her. "You're enough, you know that? You don't need her to be whole." Clara nodded, but her fingers kept typing. She hacked into public databases, not illegally, but cleverly, cross-referencing birth records, hospital logs, and news archives from 2003. She found nothing concrete, just whispers, a young woman, possibly a runaway, who'd left St. Mary's the night Clara was born. The trail ended there, but a name kept surfacing in her searches, Clara Ellison. It was vague, tied to a missing persons report, but it felt like a thread worth pulling. One night, unable to sleep, Clara called her best friend, Mia, a fellow nerd with a knack for digging up obscure facts. "Mia, I found something," Clara said, her voice low over the phone. "A name. Clara Ellison. Ever heard it?" Mia paused, typing furiously. "Hang on. Okay, there's a Clara Ellison in a 2003 article. Some rich family's daughter who vanished. Think it's her." Clara's heart raced. "Maybe. Send me everything." The article was thin, mentioning a Chicago heiress who disappeared after a family scandal. No photo, no follow-up. But it was enough to keep Clara awake, her mind spinning with possibilities. Was her mother a runaway heiress? A fugitive? The mystery deepened, but so did her resolve. She wasn't searching for love, she was searching for truth. Clara's senior year of high school was a blur of accolades and applications. Her perfect SAT score and a portfolio of coding projects caught the eye of MIT, which offered her a full scholarship. The day the letter arrived, the Vosses threw an impromptu celebration, inviting neighbors to their backyard for burgers and lemonade. "You're gonna change the world, kid," Henry said, raising a glass of soda. "To Clara, our rocket girl." Clara blushed, hugging him. "I'm just getting started, Dad." At MIT, Clara was a fish in water. Her professors marveled at her ability to connect economics, coding, and behavioral psychology. She joined a tech club, where she met Leo, a lanky coder with a quick wit, and Priya, a marketing genius with a knack for storytelling. One night, in a fluorescent-lit study room, Leo leaned back, tossing a stress ball. "Clara, your algorithm, it's insane. It predicted that sneaker trend last month to the day." Priya nodded, scrolling through data. "If we refine it, we could pitch it to startups. Or bigger. Like, Google big." Clara's eyes gleamed. "Not yet. It's not just about trends. It's about control. Predicting what people want before they know it." Leo grinned. "You're scary, Voss. Scary brilliant." By her sophomore year, Clara was presenting at conferences, her name whispered in tech circles. She wasn't just a student, she was a force, building a network of allies who believed in her vision. Yet, late at night, she'd stare at her laptop, the name Clara Ellison typed into a search bar, her past and future colliding in a single unyielding question. The MIT dorm room was a cluttered shrine to Clara's ambition. A flickering desk lamp cast shadows over a tangle of cables, empty coffee mugs, and a whiteboard scrawled with algorithms so dense they looked like hieroglyphs. It was 2 a.m., and Clara, now 20, sat hunched over her laptop, her hazel eyes reflecting the glow of code scrolling across the screen. Her algorithm, a predictive model for consumer behavior, was no longer a side project. It was her obsession, a key to unlocking a future where she'd never feel powerless again. Across the room, Leo sprawled on a beanbag, munching on stale pizza. "Clara, you've been at this for hours. Take a break, or your brain's gonna crash like Windows 95. She didn't look up. "Not yet. I'm close." The model's predicting a surge in wearable tech, smartwatches, fitness bands. "If I tweak the variables, I can narrow it to specific brands." Priya, perched on the bed with her own laptop, raised an eyebrow. "You're saying you can predict what people will buy before they even know they want it?" "Exactly," Clara said, her voice sharp with excitement. "It's not just data. It's psychology, economics, patterns. People think they choose, but they follow signals. I'm decoding those signals." Leo whistled. "That's not an algorithm. That's mind control." Clara smirked, but her focus didn't waver. She'd spent months refining the code, cross-referencing market data with social media trends, purchase histories, even weather patterns. Her model wasn't just predictive, it was revolutionary, capable of forecasting consumer demand with eerie precision. But it was still theoretical, untested in the real world, and Clara knew she needed a proving ground. One night, during a rare break, she sat with Leo and Priya at a campus diner, the air thick with the smell of fries and coffee. "I need to test it," Clara said, tapping her fork against her plate. "Something big. A real market move." Priya leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Like what?" "A stock. A startup. An investment," Clara said. "Something with high risk, high reward. If I'm right, it's my ticket out of this dorm room." Leo grinned. "And if you're wrong?" Clara's gaze hardened. "I'm not wrong." The chapter closes with Clara staring at her laptop, the cursor blinking on a stock chart for a struggling wearable tech company. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, a moment of quiet before the plunge that will change everything. Viewers are left wondering, will her algorithm hold up, or is she betting too big? Clara's chance came in the form of a $10,000 inheritance from her adoptive grandmother, a woman who'd always slipped her extra cookies and whispered, "You're destined for greatness, kid." The money, modest but precious, sat in Clara's bank account, burning a hole in her pragmatism. Her algorithm had flagged a small company, Pulse Tech, whose smartwatch prototype was languishing due to poor marketing but showed explosive potential in her model's projections. In the dorm, Clara gathered Leo and Priya, her makeshift war council. "Pulsetech's stock is at $2 a share," she said, projecting her laptop screen onto the wall. "My model says it'll hit $50 in 6 months. I'm putting everything in." Priya's jaw dropped. "Everything?" "Clara, that's your entire inheritance. What if? It won't fail, Clara cut in, her voice steady but fierce. The data's solid. Consumer trends, patent filings, even Reddit chatter, it's all aligning. This is it. Leo rubbed his chin, skeptical. You're betting your grandma's legacy on a hunch. It's not a hunch, Clara snapped, then softened. It's math. It's logic. It's me. She invested the full $10,000, buying 5,000 shares. The next 6 months were torture. She barely slept, checking stock tickers obsessively, her confidence warring with doubt. Leo and Priya took turns bringing her food, their banter a lifeline. If you're wrong, you owe me pizza for a year, Leo teased one night, tossing her a soda. If I'm right, Clara shot back, I'm buying the pizzeria. Then, it happened. Pulse Tech announced a partnership with a major retailer, and their stock skyrocketed to $55 overnight. Clara's $10,000 became $275,000. The dorm room erupted in cheers as Leo lifted her off the ground, Priya screaming, "You're a freaking genius!" But Clara's mind was already racing ahead. This wasn't just a win, it was proof. Her algorithm worked. She could bend markets to her will. As she stared at her bank balance, a new fire ignited. This was only the beginning. Clara standing alone on the MIT quad, the night sky above her, clutching her phone with the stock app open. A notification pings, a news alert about Polsteca's CEO mentioning an anonymous investor who'd believed in them early. The windfall changed everything. Clara moved out of the dorm into a small Cambridge apartment, her walls lined with monitors displaying real-time market data. But success didn't quiet the questions about her past. One evening, while sorting through old adoption papers for tax purposes, she found a crumpled note tucked in a folder, overlooked for years. It read, Clara Ellison, St. Mary's, 2003. Her breath caught. The name again. She called Mia, now a grad student in Chicago, her voice urgent. Mia, that name, Clara Ellison. I found it in my adoption file. It's real. Mia, ever the sleuth, was already typing. Hold up. I'm pulling records. Okay. Clara Ellison, tied to the Ellison family. Old money, Chicago real estate. She was in the news in '03, vanished after some family drama. No one's seen her since. Clara's heart pounded. Family drama. Like what? Something about a falling out with her dad, a big-shot developer. The articles are vague. Want me to dig deeper? Yes, Clara said, her voice barely a whisper. Find her. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, her algorithm humming in the background, but her mind was on Clara. Was this woman her mother? A runaway heiress who'd abandoned her? The questions gnawed, but so did her resolve. She wouldn't let her past derail her future. The next day, at a coffee shop meeting with Leo and Priya, Clara was distracted. Priya noticed, setting down her latte. You okay, Clara? You look like you saw a ghost. Clara hesitated, then slid the note across the table. It's about my birth mother. Maybe. Leo read it, his eyes widening. Whoa. This is heavy. You gonna track her down? I don't know, Clara admitted. Part of me wants answers. Part of me just wants to keep building. Priya squeezed her hand. You don't have to choose. You're Clara Vas Mulvas. You can do both. With her newfound wealth, Clara didn't rest. She founded Vantage Analytics, a startup built around her algorithm. She recruited Leo as her tech lead and Priya as her marketing director, forming a tight-knit trio. In a sleek co-working space, they hashed out their vision over late-night takeout. We're not just predicting trends, Clara said, pacing the room, a whiteboard marker in hand. We're shaping them. Vantage will tell companies what their customers want before they know it. Leo grinned, typing furiously. So, we're basically the Oracle of Delphi, but with better code. Priya laughed, sketching a logo. And better branding. We need a name that screams power, trust, future. Their dynamic was electric. Clara's relentless drive, Leo's technical wizardry, Priya's storytelling flair. They hired a small team of coders and analysts, all young, hungry, and loyal to Clara's vision. One evening, During a brainstorming session, Leo leaned back, tossing a stress ball. "We need a big move, Clara. Something to put Vantage on the map." "I've got one," she said, her eyes gleaming. "There's a company, Next-Gen Technologies. They've got a machine learning patent we need, but they're bleeding cash." Priya frowned. "A buyout? That's huge. Can we afford it?" Clara's smile was steely. "We will." Next-Gen Technologies was a sinking ship, its AI patents brilliant but mismanaged. Clara saw opportunity where others saw failure. She spent weeks preparing, her team analyzing every angle. At the negotiation table, she faced Next-Gen's grizzled CEO, Tom Hargrove, a man twice her age with a skeptical sneer. "You're young, Miss Voss," Hargrove said, leaning back. "What makes you think you can save my company?" Clara didn't flinch. "I don't want to save it. I want to make it better. Your patents are gold, but your strategy's a mess. Vantage can turn it around." Hargrove laughed. Big talk for a kid with a startup. She slid a proposal across the table. "Numbers don't lie. Look at our projections." He scanned the document, his smirk fading. Clara's algorithm had predicted a 300% revenue spike if Next-Gen's tech was integrated with Vantage's model. After tense negotiations, she secured the deal for $50 million, using her Pulse Tech profits and a bold loan. The acquisition sent shockwaves through the tech world. Vantage Analytics was no longer a startup, it was a player. Clara's team worked around the clock, merging Next-Gen's patents with her algorithm, creating a platform that dominated consumer analytics. At a celebratory dinner, Priya raised a glass. To Clara, the girl who doesn't know how to lose. Clara smiled, but her thoughts drifted to Clara Ellison. The victory was hers, but the unanswered question lingered. Clara Voss, at 22, was no longer just a name whispered in MIT's halls. She was a phenomenon. The acquisition of Next-Gen Technologies had catapulted Vantage Analytics into the spotlight, and the media couldn't get enough. Her Cambridge apartment, once a quiet haven, was now besieged by reporters. A Forbes headline screamed, "The 22-year-old prodigy redefining tech," while Business Insider dubbed her the algorithm alchemist. Tech blogs dissected her every move, and social media buzzed with hashtags. #ClaraVoss, #VantageRising. One morning, Clara stood in her office, a sleek, glass-walled space overlooking Boston's skyline, scrolling through her phone. A notification popped up, a viral X post with her photo, captioned, "From nobody to billionaire? Who is Clara Voss?" She frowned, her fingers tightening around the phone. The world was obsessed, but they didn't know the half of it. In a team meeting, Priya tossed a magazine onto the table, Clara's face on the cover. "You're officially a celebrity," Priya said, grinning. "They're calling you the next Elon Musk." Clara rolled her eyes. "Great. Just what I need, more noise." Leo, tinkering with a tablet, smirked. "You hate it, but it's good for business. Our stock's up 15% since the Forbes piece." "They don't care about the tech," Clara said, pacing. "They want a story. The orphan genius, the rags-to-riches fairy tale. It's a distraction." Priya leaned forward, her tone serious. "Maybe it's time to own the narrative. Tell your story, Clara. Your way." Clara hesitated. She'd guarded her past fiercely, sharing only fragments with Leo and Priya. The idea of bearing it to the world felt like betrayal, of herself, of the Vosses. But the media's hunger was relentless, and she knew silence would only fuel speculation. That night, alone in her apartment, she watched a YouTube interview request from a prominent tech journalist, Lena Harper. "Miss Voss," Lena's email read, "your story inspires millions. Let's share it." Clara's finger hovered over the reply button, her mind wrestling with the cost of exposure. The chapter closes with her staring out at the city lights, the weight of her newfound fame pressing down. Across the country, in a rundown Chicago apartment, a woman sat hunched over a laptop, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. Clara Ellison, now 39, looked nothing like the heiress she'd once been. Her hair was streaked with gray, her eyes tired from years of struggle. The Ellison fortune was long gone, squandered by bad investments and family feuds. Clara scraped by, working odd jobs, haunted by the choice she'd made 2 decades ago. The TV in the corner played a news segment about Viralvideos, the young tech mogul. Clara froze, her coffee mug slipping from her hand. The girl on the screen, sharp cheekbones, piercing hazel eyes, was unmistakable. It was her daughter. The baby she'd left at St. Mary's. The name Clara hit like a punch, a name she'd chosen in a fleeting moment of hope before walking away. "She did it," Clara whispered, tears welling. "She made it." But the awe was laced with dread. Clara's life was a mess, debt, a string of failed relationships, a past she couldn't outrun. Seeing Clara's success stirred a desperate thought. Maybe her daughter could help her. Maybe she could make amends. Or maybe she just needed a lifeline. Clara spent days scouring the internet, piecing together Clara's rise. She found an old contact, a mutual acquaintance from her Chicago days, and sent a hesitant email, "I need to reach Viralvideos. It's personal. Tell her it's about St. Mary's, 2003. The message was vague, but it was a start. Back in Boston, Clara was in a boardroom, pitching Vantage's expanded platform to investors, when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Clara, we need to talk. It's about your mother. St. Mary's." Her heart stopped. She excused herself, stepping into the hall, her hands trembling as she reread the message. The past she'd chased was now chasing her. Clara couldn't focus. The mysterious text consumed her, its words looping in her mind. She confided in Priya and Leo over takeout in her office, the city glittering below. "This could be her," Clara said, her voice tight. "Clara Ellison. After all these years." Leo frowned, leaning back in his chair. "Or it could be a scam. You're a billionaire now, Clara. People come out of the woodwork for money." Priya nodded. "He's right. You need to be careful. But, if it's her, don't you want to know?" Clara's jaw tightened. "I want answers, not drama. If she's reaching out now, it's because she wants something." She traced the sender's number to a Chicago area code, confirming her suspicions. With Mia's help, she dug deeper, uncovering Clara's recent history. A string of low-paying jobs, a bankruptcy filing, a life far from the heiress rumors. The more Clara learned, the more conflicted she felt. Was this woman a victim of circumstance, or a manipulator exploiting her success? Against Leo's protests, Clara replied to the text, "Who are you? What do you want?" The response came hours later, "I'm Clara. I just want to talk. Please. I know I don't deserve it." Clara's stomach churned. She called Margaret, her adoptive mother, needing an anchor. "Mama, someone claiming to be my birth mother contacted me," she said, her voice breaking. Margaret's sigh was audible over the phone. "Oh, sweetheart. What do you feel?" "Angry. Curious. Scared," Clara admitted. "Should I meet her?" Margaret paused, then said, "You're strong enough to decide, Clara. Whatever you choose, we're here." Clara set up a meeting at a neutral Chicago cafe, her nerves fraying as the date approached. She told Priya and Leo, who insisted on coming for support. "We're your backup," Leo said, half joking. "No way you're facing this alone." The Chicago cafe was quiet, its wooden tables bathed in soft morning light. Clara sat in a corner booth, her hands clasped tightly around a coffee mug. Priya and Leo sat nearby, pretending to read menus but watching her closely. When Clara walked in, Clara knew instantly, it was her. The same hazel eyes, the same sharp cheekbones, now etched with years of hardship. Clara approached, her steps hesitant. "Clara," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Clara nodded, her throat tight. "Sit." They faced each other, the air thick with unspoken history. Clara's hands fidgeted, her eyes darting. I didn't know if you'd come." "Why now?" Clara asked, her voice cold. 22 years, and you picked now to show up?" Clara flinched. "I saw you on TV. I didn't know you'd become this." She gestured vaguely, as if encompassing Clara's entire life. "I'm proud, but I know I don't have the right to be." Clara leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "You left me. At St. Mary's. No note, no explanation. Why?" Clara's gaze dropped. "I was young. Scared. My family, They were suffocating me. My father wanted me to marry someone I didn't love, to save the business. I ran. When I had you, I was alone, broke, terrified. I thought you'd be better off without me. Ilara's hands clenched. You didn't even try. I did, Clara said, tears spilling. I checked on you, years later. Found out you were adopted by good people. I told myself I'd done the right thing. Ilara's voice cracked. The right thing. I grew up wondering why I wasn't enough. Clara reached out, but Ilara pulled back. I'm sorry, Clara whispered. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know. The silence stretched, heavy. Ilara stood, her chair scraping. I need time, she said, walking out, Priya and Leo trailing her. Outside, she leaned against a wall, breathing hard, tears threatening to spill. Back in Boston, Ilara threw herself into work, but Clara's words haunted her. She couldn't shake the image of her mother's brokenness, nor the anger that still burned. One night, she sat with Margaret and Henry via video call, pouring out the meeting's details. She's not who I imagined, Ilara said, her voice raw. I thought she'd be stronger. But she's just a person who made a terrible choice. Henry's gruff voice softened. You don't owe her anything, kiddo. But you owe yourself peace. Margaret nodded. Forgiveness isn't for her, Ilara. It's for you. To let go. Ilara spent sleepless nights wrestling with her emotions. She didn't want to forgive Clara, not yet, but she didn't want to carry the weight of resentment either. Advantage, she channeled her turmoil into focus, pushing her team to refine their platform. But the personal lingered. One evening, she met Priya at a park, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. I don't know what to do about her, Ilara admitted. Part of me wants her gone. Part of me wants to understand. Priya hugged her. You don't have to decide now. You're building something bigger than her mistakes. Focus on that. Ilara made a choice, not forgiveness, but clarity. She wrote Clara a letter, delivered through Mia. I'm not ready to let you in, but I'm not closing the door. Live your life. I'm living mine. It was a boundary, not a bridge, but it freed her to move forward. Ilara Voss stood at the podium of a packed San Francisco conference hall, the crowd a sea of tech moguls, investors, and journalists. At 23, she was the keynote speaker at Tech World, the industry's premier event. Her company, Vantage Analytics, had just hit a staggering $1 billion valuation, a milestone announced that morning by a Wall Street Journal headline, Vantage Analytics becomes youngest unicorn led by Ilara Voss. The spotlight burned, but Ilara's presence was electric, her hazel eyes steady as she addressed the room. Vantage isn't just about predicting markets, she said, her voice clear and commanding. It's about empowering people to shape their future. We don't just analyze data, we create possibilities. The crowd erupted in applause, but Ilara's mind flashed to her childhood bedroom, cluttered with thrift store books and a clunky PC. This moment, her billion-dollar triumph, wasn't just financial. It was personal, a defiance of the abandonment that had defined her start. Backstage, Leo and Priya waited, their grins wide. You crushed it, Leo said, tossing her a water bottle. Billion-dollar boss. Priya hugged her. You're not just a boss. You're a movement. That night, at a rooftop celebration, Ilara's team toasted her success. Investors mingled, champagne flowed, but Ilara slipped away to the edge of the terrace, gazing at the city lights. Her phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. We're so proud, sweetheart. You've always been our star. Ilara smiled, her heart full, but the weight of her journey lingered. She'd built an empire, but what came next? Ilara's wealth wasn't just a number, it was a tool. Haunted by her own beginnings, she founded the Voss Foundation, dedicated to supporting abandoned and foster children. In a Boston office, she met with her new team of social workers and educators, outlining her vision. Every kid deserves a chance, she said, her voice firm. Education, tech access, mentorship, that's what we're giving them. One afternoon, she visited a local foster home, a modest building filled with kids who reminded her of herself. A girl named Sophie, 9, with wide eyes and a knack for puzzles, tugged at Ilara's sleeve. You made computers talk to each other? Sophie asked, clutching a worn math book. Clara knelt, smiling. Something like that. Want to learn how? Sophie nodded eagerly. Clara spent the afternoon teaching her basic coding, her laughter echoing as Sophie's code lit up a screen. You're gonna be better than me one day, Clara said, ruffling her hair. Back at Vantage, Clara's team noticed a shift. You're different, Priya said over coffee. Happier. The foundation, it's changing you. Clara nodded, her gaze distant. I spent years proving I was enough. Now I want to make sure kids like Sophie know they are too. The Foundation's first initiative, a nationwide tech scholarship program, launched with fanfare. Clara spoke at the event, her words raw. I was left at a hospital with nothing but a name. But I had people who believed in me. Now it's my turn to believe in others. The crowd stood, moved. Vantage Analytics was no longer just a company, it was a global force. Clara spearheaded expansions into Europe and Asia, her algorithm powering solutions for everything from retail to healthcare. In a London boardroom, she pitched to a skeptical group of investors, her team at her side. Our platform doesn't just predict trends, she said, clicking through slides. It solves problems, supply chain inefficiencies, medical resource allocation, even climate-driven market shifts. A grizzled investor, Sir Edward Hale, leaned forward. Ambitious, Miss Voss. But can you deliver globally? Clara's smile was steely. We already are. Our Tokyo office just optimized a logistics network, saving $200 million. Care to see the numbers? Hale nodded, impressed. The deal was sealed, and Vantage's reach grew. Clara traveled relentlessly, from Singapore to Berlin, her vision reshaping industries. But the pace took a toll. One night in a Tokyo hotel, jet-lagged and alone, she called Leo. This is bigger than I imagined, she admitted. Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough. Leo laughed. Clara, you're a hurricane. The world's just catching up. Her global push wasn't just about profit. Vantage partnered with NGOs, using its tech to predict disaster relief needs and optimize aid distribution. At a UN conference, Clara's keynote on AI for social good earned a standing ovation. Technology isn't the answer, she said. It's the tool. People are the answer. Clara on a private jet, reviewing global metrics, a world map glowing on her tablet. A news alert flashes. Vantage Analytics redefines global innovation. Despite her whirlwind life, Clara craved connection. Her adoptive parents, Margaret and Henry, remained her rock, flying to Boston for monthly dinners. One evening, in their old Midwestern kitchen, Clara helped Margaret bake her famous apple pie. You're busier than ever, Margaret said, flour on her hands. But you seem settled. Clara smiled. I'm figuring it out, Mama. You and Dad gave me that. Henry, tinkering with a radio at the table, chuckled. Just don't forget to call us when you're running the world. At Vantage, her team was her second family. Leo and Priya, now her closest confidants, shared late-night laughs and fierce loyalty. But a new figure entered her life. Sam, a quiet engineer who joined Vantage's AI division. His dry humor and steady presence grounded her. One night, after a long coding session, Sam lingered. You're always moving, he said, his voice soft. Ever stop to just be? Clara laughed, surprised. Not really. You offering to teach me? Maybe, he said, his smile shy but warm. Their relationship grew slowly, built on shared drives and quiet moments. Sam understood her past without needing to dissect it, and Clara found herself opening up in ways she hadn't before. At a company retreat, she introduced him to Leo and Priya. He's good for you, Priya whispered, nudging her. You're smiling more. Clara's story had become a global phenomenon. Documentaries, podcasts, and X-threads chronicled her rise from an abandoned infant to a billionaire visionary. At a gala for the Voss Foundation, she stood before a crowd of philanthropists, tech leaders, and foster youth, her voice steady but emotional. I didn't choose my start, she said. But I chose my path. Every one of you can too. Sophie, now a confident coder, beaming from the audience. Margaret and Henry sit nearby, tears in their eyes. Leo, Priya, and Sam stand backstage, their pride palpable. Ilara's foundation had reached thousands, her company millions, her impact immeasurable. Later, alone in her office, Clara opened a letter from Clara, sent months after their last contact. "I'm trying to be better," it read. "You don't need me, but I'm grateful for you." Clara set it aside, not with anger, but acceptance. Her past was a chapter, not the book. She looked at a photo on her desk, her with Margaret, Henry, Leo, Priya, Sam, and Sophie at a foundation event. This was her family, her legacy. Vantage was expanding into new frontiers, AI ethics, sustainable tech, while her foundation grew, a beacon for kids like her. Her story wasn't over. It was a beginning. The final scene shows Clara at a school, teaching a room of foster kids to code. "You're not your past," she tells them. "You're what you build." The kids' faces light up, mirroring her own spark years ago. The end.